Sebastian, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, drummers, if you've ever wanted to play a one-handed drum roll and found it difficult, this is going to be a lesson in how to do a one-handed drum roll, which is not difficult, or at least not very difficult. I first heard a one-handed drum roll from Buddy Rich many years ago with his left hand, and there is a way to do it, and YouTube has videos about how to do a one-handed drum roll where you use the rim of the snare and so forth. I couldn't succeed myself in doing that, so I wanted to play a different type of one-handed drum roll, so I'm going to explain how I did this. So the first idea I had was to play both ends of the stick on two separate drums. So for instance, I'd use the small tom-tom and the snare and do this. You can see you can do a one-handed drum roll there where you hit the end of the stick, the butt of the stick, and then the tip. And the basic way you do it is you bounce the stick off the palm of your hand and use your fingers to go up and down. And if you practice that for a while, you'll be able to learn it without too much difficulty. It took me about a month to learn to do it. I've been playing drums for many years, but I'm not a professional drummer. So I'm not an expert drummer, so don't expect to see me do fantastic drumming for you now. I'm just going to teach you how to do this one-handed drum roll. So you practice this movement, fingers doing this, bounce off this. It bounces off the head of the drum. Okay, so the next question was how to play the drum roll on a single drum. Of course, the stick is longer than a single drum, so it's difficult to do. It's difficult to play it. If you tried, say, on the floor tom-tom here or on the snare, but obviously it's too wide by about an inch or so. Just hit the rim like that. Or if you hit one end of it on the drum head and then the other head hits the rim, so that's no good. So I was trying to figure out a way around that. So my first thought was, why don't you get a shorter drumstick and play it so it's then going to be so the butt of the stick and the tip are on the drum. But if you play with a short stick like this, which is like a child's one, it's actually difficult to get the thing to bounce properly because it's too short. You need the longer stick, the ordinary standard length stick, to get the right balance. But then the question is, it's too long and it hits the rim of the drum. So how do you get around it? Well, my first idea, I went through various prototypes, but what I came up with after various things like attaching a golf ball, a practice golf ball to the tip, I used a thing I bought off the internet, which is this orange attachment, which is actually not designed for the purpose I'm using it for. It's designed for people to put their finger in when they're playing the stick so they can hold it and then they can twirl the stick. So what I do is I just attach that same thing toward the tip of the stick, not to the here where you'd have if you were holding it like this. Now the purpose of this is to lift the drumstick high enough so that the attachment hits the head of the drum and the rest of the drumstick doesn't hit the rim because it's too high. Perhaps you can see now Sebastian is pointing the camera at that. So if I hit down there, I hit the drum flat, but I don't hit the rim. So that was the essential point, is to do that. So I'm now going to show you how to play a single-handed drum roll. I'm going to use it on the floor tom-tom because I don't have to lean over. Using this attachment there. So I'll start off reasonably slowly. I'm just going back and forward, right, in the same way I explained before, but using this attachment. So now you can go quicker, like this. You can see you can go quite quickly, and as I say, I'm not an expert drummer. So you don't look at me and say, oh, that's going to take me so long, I can't be Buddy Rich. I'm not Buddy Rich. So it takes you a little bit to learn it, but it's not impossible. One trick I did was, you have to learn to hit with the butt of the stick. So I just do this. So the only hitting was with the butt of the stick. And then I put the two together. Of course, the contact points are not toward the middle of the drum head. They're toward the edge, so you don't get quite as much attack, quite as much good snare drum sound, and you live with that. You get over it. So once you've learned how to do that, you can. One of the first things I learned was to play the drum part to the old instrumental Wipeout with one hand. So I'm now going to play that using the bass drum at the same time, so you can see what's possible when you've mastered this one-handed drum roll. So it's like this. Okay, so you can play Wipeout using one hand and this attachment, which you can buy off the internet on Amazon for a few dollars. I have an elastic band on it. The reason for that is the stick with this attachment has a tendency to slip to the sides like this, and if you have an elastic band you can grip it more easily so it stays vertical like this. I've just taken the snare off the snare drum because it was resonating with that, so I thought it sounded better, so it is. Okay, so when you've learnt it with the right hand, you can move to the left hand. You don't need to do it with the left hand, but if you want to do it, you can. And again, I'm not that brilliant as a drummer, it's all right, but I can do it reasonably. That. So you can do the left, right and left hand. Now imagine if you're a really expert drummer and you could do both hands at the same time, you're now managing to produce a lot of drum beats in a very short space of time, which is good. So that's how you do the one-handed drum roll using the butt of the stick and the attachment like this. Okay, so you can work on that. Now the next thing I'm going to tell you about is how to use this same basic concept with the hi-hat. Normally, of course, when you're playing the hi-hat, it sounds like this. It's a usual thing, right? So if you want to play a snare, the same down the road. Okay, fine. If you want to play the hi-hat, I've now got the stick with two of these attachments. Basic reason being that because of the shape of the cymbal, your knuckles tend to hit the cymbal if you use the first thing I tried, which only has one of the attachments. So if you have two, you can raise off your hand a bit further off the hi-hat, and then you can play like this. So I'm moving around the hi-hat a bit. You can start slowly. Now see how quickly you can move the stick, because you're bouncing the stick like this off the palm of your hand and using your fingers, and it bounces off the cymbal, of course. So you can move it pretty quickly. Okay, so now what that gives you is the ability to play the hi-hat with that extra drum beats, right? Extra speed, which you wouldn't have without the ability to play the one-handed drum roll. So if you were just playing an ordinary rhythm with the bass drum and the rest of it, you could play like this. So what you hear then is what I think your ear will tell you is a completely different type of sound, rhythmic sound, than you get from normal drum playing, where you're not being able to play that many beats on the hi-hat as you do there. So it gives a very interesting, to my ear, very interesting type of rhythm, which you don't have available unless you can play effect like that. So there's a lot of things you can do once you've learnt this, not just playing drums. You can play on the hi-hat as well. You can do, you know. That's another example. Alright, that's end of lesson in how to play the one-handed drum roll using both ends of the stick.